And I'm going to set recording on. I'm going to preface all this with, like I was saying in the last one, I don't know if you heard me, but I have never used Zoom to this extent until the last 24 hours, and I am completely in uncharted territory. Streaming live is not something I've ever really done before. I'm pretty sure I screwed it up for the first 5 minutes in Nicole's one because I didn't realize you had to click another button, and I think I got it right this time. All right, so as we're letting attendees stream in here, just like every other workout class I've coached, 2:03 will probably be the time everyone comes for the 2 o'clock class. So we'll let people kind of stream in slowly. If you guys want, give us a shout out in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from, what gym you're from. If you have any particular questions, try and use the Q&A button. Again, I've never used that feature before. I think I can figure it out. I'm going to hope I can. But if you put it in the chat, it might stream through and I don't see it. Topic of today's live webinar, we got John Briggs here. If you guys don't know John Briggs, then I don't know why you're here. You're probably here because you know him. He's the author of Profit First for Microgyms, which obviously is available at Amazon and any other reputable bookstore. I think it's probably on the required reading list of any gym owner or aspiring gym owner, because anyone here in this chat who's owned a gym for a little bit of amount of time who hasn't followed this type of a book probably realizes that the last person you pay is yourself, and you've probably been doing it for a while with no vacation and no real income, and you're gonna want to read that book. So Matt, with Excel Fitness and Performance, I'm guessing that's Excel. What's up, Matt? Lauren says, I'm currently reading Profit First for Microgyms. I'm implementing its practice, so I am so excited for this. Well, I'm excited for you, Lauren. Start getting paid as being a gym owner. I think a lot of members come through your gyms and they think you guys are probably driving Ferraris with the simple math that they do, and they don't realize how hard it is to actually run a gym. So before we start, I have to address the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is the board game over your right shoulder, which appears to be an expletive towards the IRS.
Yeah, leave it up for your imagination, right? No, it's funny. It's a legit board game. It's designed kind of after Monopoly, but someone created this. They took the time. Game that teaches people how to stick the IRS.
Stick the IRS.
You know, shockingly, it wasn't actually part of my curriculum when I got my master's degree in tax, but I think it should have been.
And I'll have you all notice how he always repositions it back to being exactly in that position. Leaving it up to your imagination. All right, so John Briggs, the man of the hour. Why don't we start by just kind of talking about a quick background of you, where you came from, how you got into owning a gym, and why you're on this call today.
Yeah, so my fitness journey started really with my tax business. We got introduced to the CrossFit world through Clay Weldon with 321 Go was the company. And we created a good relationship with him, and we started serving these affiliates. And then at one point I realized, I feel like I need to understand them better. Why not buy a failing gym? So a year and a half ago, I bought into a failing gym. It happened to be the gym that I was going to. It was a selfish reason because I had a routine. I liked the location. And the last time I had changed my fitness routine, I ended up gaining like 30 pounds. So I've owned this failing gym with one of the guys who was also a business. He already owned it. It's been a year and a half now, CrossFit GSL. And, they say Great Salt Lake, but it's really in Draper, Utah, which is south of Salt Lake, 30 minutes south.
It's like the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And so through that time, I also became a Profit First professional, and then Mike Michalowicz allowed some of us who have industries that we have a lot of coverage in, who are already doing Profit First stuff, to write derivative books if we were interested. And so January 7th, we published Profit First for Microgyms. After having helped a lot of gym owners implement Profit First, it made sense to write a separate book for them, because the generic thing in Mike's book, which is very great, it just didn't apply. We always were changing percentages, and there's a lot of pushback from gym owners like, well, this table doesn't make sense because it's not for gyms. We're like, well, so let's redo that. So now the Profit First for Microgyms is specific for the gym community. Now that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. And before we dive into the actual meat of this discussion, I'm just curious, like, how has owning your gym really opened your mind to exactly what the problems you're trying to solve for gym owners?
There's, in life, when you own a business, you realize there's a tactical component of being an owner, and there's the emotional part. And when we look at financial papers or statements, it's a piece of paper, and we can help them see tactically what they need to do. But it wasn't until owning a gym that I realized our tactical suggestions sometimes have a huge amount of emotional baggage that comes tied to it, which sometimes can get in your way of wanting to make a decision. Because most of the time, in my experience, members and coaches push back on a lot of the good business ideas that you need to be implementing as a gym owner. But if I didn't know that, and so now that I've experienced it, when we give suggestions, we can also add in, oh, by the way, here might be some pushback you're going to get, and here are ways to combat that, or here's why that pushback isn't relevant. But ultimately, it's helped me really just from an emotional standpoint understand how the decisions need to be made.
Yeah, that's huge. I think understanding with boots on the ground what it's like to run a gym is pretty important when you're giving advice to gym owners, right? And I commend you for actually taking the step of owning a gym. It's not the most glamorous lifestyle endeavor, but given that you're trying to help gyms, that means a lot. All right, so here we are today. I'm dubbing this moment in life the Corona craziness. We all in the gym industry are going through a huge transformation, and your clients are too. Unfortunately, it's a bunch of changes that you nor your clients can control. Along with that creates a lot of financial insecurity. And the reason that I wanted to talk to you today and bring some of this information to gym owners is, what can we do to try and triage and assuage some of this financial insecurity that's going on? Right off the bat, I would assume if people had already implemented the profit first for microgyms mentality, they might be a little bit better situated for this today. But let's assume that that's not our target for this conversation today, because they've probably already been versed on what to do, and they already have their money and finances a little bit better in order. So let's assume most of the gym owners that are going to be paying attention to this today are not profit first for microgym subscribers at this point. I find myself in a situation where I've got members potentially quitting, and I don't have a ton of money in the bank. I don't have 3 months, 4 months, 6 months of reserves in the bank. What can I do right now to help with this situation?
Yeah. And as you mentioned a couple times, we're kind of in uncharted territory. We're all doing some new stuff on the fly. I've lost sleep over thinking about, like, if I could just give the one magic bullet answer that gym owners need to hear. And I don't have that. I don't know what the right answer is specifically for every gym, but I have some ideas. And while if a gym was using Profit First prior, just in 30 seconds, I'll explain. I would first take from my Profit First account, because you've been holding on to half of it. I'd take from my tax account second, because you're going to have losses and you don't have tax on losses. And then I'd take from my equipment account as well, if I were running out of cash. That's the order I would go. Now, for those who haven't done Profit First, I actually still think the solution, even in this scenario, is to run Profit First. And here's the reason. Profit First forces you to set aside the money for certain things. And what that does, imagine, well, so they did in the book, Mike talks about the small plate study, because over the course of the last 30 years, the size of plates that Americans have used has increased from like 9 inches to 12 inches. And that results in an additional X amount of calories that are consumed every day, which might be one of the reasons why Americans are more obese than other countries. But the reason is because from a psychological standpoint, a human behavior standpoint, we consume everything that's on that plate. Well, that relates to the way most of us started our business by having one big bank account. We look at the one bank account, and in that bank account, member deposits come in, and we see that balance. And sometimes it's hard for us to realize that money that came in already has prior commitments. But because we're not thinking through that, we just spend the money out of the account, and then we find ourselves, despite working a heroic amount of hours, living paycheck to paycheck. So the Profit First system says, let's separate those things out into other plates. So in this case, other bank accounts. And we know what those other accounts should be as gym owners. We want one for profit. We want one for owner's pay, for tax burdens, for equipment. Now I'd say if you haven't run Profit First yet, I would just start with a Profit First account. Because if you're starting it right now, the chances of your tax bill being very big over the next couple months is not really a problem. Right now, we're trying to keep members paying. We were trying to figure out how do we provide value to them so they keep paying us for our services, which I think is probably the most important thing gym owners should be doing right now. Managing the cash is second. We're the low-hanging fruit in my mind. So with that in mind, by specifically putting money into a profit account, I force myself to see if my expenses are being productive or not productive. And this is where it's really up to every gym owner to make that decision for their gym. Last month, my outlook on what was a productive expense and a non-productive expense is very different than what it is today after, the pandemic term was labeled on the coronavirus, and now gyms, I don't know how many states at this point have mandated it. Cities have done it. In Utah, like they're going county by county on mandating gyms shutting down. It's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, right. It's a matter of when. And so I would go back and look at my expenses and say, what actually is absolutely mandatory for me to stay open? Well, I have to pay my rent expense. And even that, I'm going to try to see if the landlord's going to let me maybe defer some payments and then spread it out over the next X amount of months. But gosh, I think I'd love to hear your comments, because I know you mentioned Push Press has a free version that some owners might be able to use, because you look at $200 to $300 a month in your software cost right now. That's food on your table, if nothing else. We've gone to this scenario where $50 is a big deal. Yeah. Instead of it's $50, it's okay, I'll get to it later.
Yeah, we actually did a podcast episode recently, which hasn't been released yet, but in it, you made me realize that I'm pretty much, I guess, your ideal client, in the fact that I have a bunch of $19 charges here and $24 charges there, and it probably adds up to like $500 a month of stuff. That for each of them individually, I'm like, it's not worth my time trying to figure out how to cancel. But then when I look at the collective balance of it, I'm like, that's actually like almost maybe a car payment, right? And I mean, one thing I'm trying to frame this whole Corona situation in a way that can be seen as positive in some ways. And what this is going to do is, as you pivot your gym to being more virtual for now, and you're working on providing value through remote training and stuff, once you get those processes underway, you're actually going to have a ton of time to spend to do the little things like this that you probably felt like you couldn't do when you were sitting in your facility and you had people coming in and out of your office every day, right? So now's the time to go through and look at those $17 charges a month that are recurring that you forgot about. Start analyzing bank statements and cleaning those things up, because I think that was an important first step you can do. That's something that's completely in your control. It's easy.
Yeah. For our gym, so the state hasn't mandated that we have to close, but our coaches were uncomfortable, and we want them to be comfortable coming into the gym, obviously. So we elected to close last night, and we've checked out equipment to our members. And so as we're going through this time, obviously as an owner, I want to take care of my coaches who need to be taken care of, because their hours are going to be cut, right? I mean, they're not there to teach all the classes, and we're moving to, we did our first at-home workout today. We posted the video and all that stuff, and still learning from what other people are doing and trying to improve that as well. But so one of the things that we're looking at is we're going to try to offer online virtual classes using Zoom, where everyone checks in for their assigned class. But in sake of keeping the doors open, we also have to be aware that we can't have as many online classes as we had in like physical space, you know. So we might have been doing 8 classes a day. Now we might be looking at doing 3 online classes a day. So the coach will be paid to host and coordinate that class so they can still make money. But obviously you need to look at your coach expense. The rent and coach team member pay are the 2 largest expenses a gym has. And I'm definitely not saying just let your coaches fend for themselves. Find out what their individual situations are, if they're okay covered in other ways, because they're going to be also generous with the idea that, yeah, you know what, let that coach take this class because I know he needs the money and we're going to be okay. But so that's another thought to look at.
Yeah. It's cool you actually brought that up, because Karen actually asked, what do you think about using Zooms to do virtual classes? I think this virtualness of fitness is now on everyone's mind. I do think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Like she asked, you know, posting video demos of the WOD movements. I think you could almost record daily what the workout is and just replay that video for the 4 o'clock class, 5 o'clock class, 6 o'clock class, or whatever. There's different ways of doing it, or you could have like a live coach actually doing it and then paying the coach for their time virtually. Like you said, I think a big factor in this is making sure the coaches aren't all of a sudden in trouble because of this. And I think it's almost to the responsibility of the gym owner that if your members stick around and pay you to be a member, you should be trying to find a way that the coaches can be earning the same amount of money that they were earning, but still doing something, either one-on-one work with the clients or doing some type of, you know, virtual coaching or something, keeping everybody afloat, you know, as long as if your members are involved. One thing I really like about all this is the community of it all. Like, we're all in the same boat together. We're all kind of like just been upended. I really appreciate the fact that you said that, you know, you're learning how to do some of this stuff from some of these other people, and now you're here trying to teach some other people stuff that you have expertise in. And I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to use the Q&A. We'll make sure we address them as we go. Just want to make sure I mention that. Let's actually dive into this landlord/lease thing. To me,
Okay.
I don't know if you can really weigh in on this because it will be a case-by-case basis, obviously. But to me, the biggest payroll items are going to be your rent and your coaches, or your lease and your coaches, right?
Statistically, it's always those 2. I've never seen it not those 2.
Right. So let's just, like, walking it back a sec. If there's a way that you can keep your coaches gainfully employed, you know, because your members aren't quitting en masse because you're still providing value, and you can go to your landlord and somehow discuss with them, you know, offsetting the rent, maybe amortizing 3 months rent into the next year's monthly payments or something. There's some strategy there to be probably had. I can actually see this as a time where financially you don't have to be in a bad spot. Like, it could actually be an okay spot. You're just going to have to do some legwork and maybe have some uncomfortable conversations, right?
Totally. And it does obviously come down to the landlord himself or herself,
Right.
or themselves, what they're willing to do. I would say this, though. For me personally, while the state has closed schools down for just 2 weeks, I'm thinking optimistically, for us, this is at least till the end of April. So I don't actually want to call the landlord yet. I want to wait till April. I don't want to like lose that card right now.
Yeah.
Just to see how things flush out. But then when it does, look, we have to understand what this coronavirus has done, if you're following the stock market, and even if you followed the economy before this, there were signs of a slowdown and possible recession already. And all this coronavirus is doing, if you've seen the crap that the stock market has been dumping the last week, it's basically forced everybody into a recession, because you close down all these industries that require a cycle of cash, restaurants, entertainment, every single sporting event that I've ever heard of. I mean, March Madness is the biggest moneymaker for the NCAA.
Yep.
Gone. And then gyms, so all these businesses, the non-essential businesses, your landlord is a step away from experiencing that impact as well. So in most cases, I feel like if you present the case to them appropriately, which is, we like this location and we're not asking for free rent. We're just asking if we can not pay right now so that you can count on my cash flow in the future, and you'll eventually be made whole by the end of the lease term or by the end of 12 months, whatever. They have motivation, because if the alternative is no, and then you go out of business, and then they got to fight you in court to get money out of you, which that's not ideal for them.
Yeah.
So,
and then you got to remember the alternate reality to this is if your gym does go out of business and they now have an open vacancy in their spot, heading into recession, that's not a great place to be, like having a bunch of open vacancies in a rental
especially
spot.
for commercial spaces, because the value of a commercial space is literally a byproduct of the rent that they can command. It's not the same as residential. Residential values are based on what buyers are paying for the houses. Commercial, it's purely based on the rent.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's a really interesting topic. If you can, I don't know strategically if it's better to talk to someone sooner or later. Lauren in the chat is saying it might be better to be proactive. I do understand also you might want to wait at least a month so you can say, this is how the month shaped up. So it doesn't look like you're jumping the gun and just asking for a handout, right?
Yeah.
Like we've slowed down a little bit for the month. I'm not looking for a handout. Can I pay you back this month over the next 12 months or something, whatever. I would probably wager that most landlords have some kind of contingency plan that they've already thought of. And I don't think it'll be a stretch that if you talk to your landlord, something like that can be worked out. Yeah. So if you can remove the rent or the lease end of your expenses out of things, I think that immediately probably will get most people to the point where they can tide this stem or stem this tide, whatever. So I think that's a really important first step to consider. The next big important thing I want to talk to you about was the Sba loans that are happening. And Mary brought this up in the Q&A, saying Massachusetts and other states are offering low interest, small business loans, but only for a limited amount. Should we be applying for these now, even if we don't know if we need it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me talk about the Sba loans, and I just want to make sure also it's on your thing. I want to briefly talk about business interruption insurance and the tax deadline.
Okay.
I have those written down in case we forget. But okay, so SBA loans. First, let me just explain. The SBA does not give loans of themselves. You get an SBA loan from a bank. And so it's still up to each bank to determine what type of loan they want to give. States are offering those things, but there's also a general national SBA. And I provided the link, but I think the way the chat works, I'll repost this here. If you log in after I put that in the chat, you won't see it. So here are two links. The first link is to banks that are offering SBA loans. And then the other link is directly from the SBA website. So they're describing, I'm just gonna read a few things off of their thing. You can get economic injury disaster loans up to $2 million in assistance. The interest rate will be 3.75 for small businesses or 2.75 if you're a nonprofit. The term pay will be like up to a maximum of 30 years. I don't know if each bank is going to determine their own terms or not, or if you get to determine that. One thing that's not on the link that I shared, but I read in other places, which is not great news for some people, but I just have to be honest, because if you've ever dealt with an SBA loan, you kind of know that you get screwed, and
It's a lot
it's
of work.
crazy. The first time I closed on an SBA loan, I'm looking at the payment plan and going through all the paperwork, which is no joke, a massive amount of paperwork. And all of a sudden there's this new fee. Like, hold on, you said my monthly payment was going to be like $1,900. Now it's $2,300. Oh yeah, that's the SBA fee.
Oh,
What?
do they amortize that into the loan, the SBA?
Yeah, but they don't have to
origination?
disclose it to you. So the first I found out about it was after I already signed and closed on the loan. Look, I had read that they are only going to be giving SBA loans to business owners who can't qualify for loans otherwise, which means if I could go to Chase right now and get a loan, maybe it's at 6 or 7%, SBA would deny me a 3.75 loan. Now, that being said, I'm going to try to find a loan, and I'm going to apply for it just to see what the experience is like, to see if any of that stuff is true. Because quite frankly, 3.75 is a phenomenal rate.
Yeah.
And if I can refinance some of my current debt on that,
Yeah.
save some money, which would allow me to hire more people. So to whoever you mentioned had the question, I would start now. If your SBA loan processes take forever, I'm hoping with the fact the president is the one who is kind of pushing this, that they'll accelerate their timeline on how fast they close. But SBA loans are brutal, man. So I would start now, even if you don't know if you need it, because guess what? You can borrow the money, and then this blows over, and you're like, oh, I didn't end up needing it. Pay it back. You're out, maybe a few $1,000s in the cost of getting the loan, but you had some nice peace of mind in the meantime, or you have the money. Maybe there's something you can do with it.
Yeah. Do some
to grow your
marketing.
business. Yeah. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the SBA stuff.
Yeah. And there are a lot of programs coming out, and it is very breaking news. Every day, the SBA is kind of releasing a little bit more about what they're doing. So definitely keep your ear to the ground. Know that there's a resource out there for you in terms of money goes. John did mention that they won't do the SBA loan if you can get a regular loan. I've gone through the loan process for a couple gyms and for Push Press itself. It's really hard to get a loan. The one quote someone told me that I think was funny and true is, I think they said, a banker will give you an umbrella when it's sunny and take it away when it rains. So unless your finances are in pretty good order, it's pretty tough to get a loan in general. So hopefully that means that people can qualify for SBA loans.
Yeah, totally. And then Mike Lee just put in the chat, what about home equity lines of credits for your business? You most likely need to personally guarantee an SBA loan anyways. You absolutely are going to have to personally guarantee an SBA loan. And yeah, if you can get a home equity line of credit, that's also a great idea. I like having one just for having one, just in case. So when you do get a line of credit, or a HELOC, as they're sometimes called, make sure you're using a bank that allows you to keep it open after it's paid off. The first HELOC I ever got, I borrowed the money, invested it into the business, turned out to be a good idea, was able to pay the loan off, but when I paid the loan off, they closed my line of credit. Like, but I want it as like a reserve in case I actually need it another time. So there are banks that do that. So make sure when you're talking to the lender, you specifically ask, will this stay open even after it's paid off? Because I think that's really important for all business owners to have a backup plan like that.
Yep. Yeah, a line of credit would be good. And you're right. You will have to personally guarantee any SBA loan. That's for sure. So on the same topic, Lauren asked, are there any specific institutes you suggest applying for loans with? This will
Gosh.
just be your local bank that's SBA approved, right? If you're going SBA.
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever had a single good experience with any lender. Like, I personally use Chase Bank for all my accounts. And from a banking standpoint, I'm fine with it. I pay them a decent fee every month to have some conveniences like being able to deposit numerous checks from my desk because I hate going into the office. But I did an SBA loan through them, the last one that I did, and I almost wanted to fire them. I almost wanted to shift and go through the headache of just shifting banks. I don't have a recommendation. I think to some level, it's always a painful experience. I would say it's more important that you bond with the person that's helping you so that they can be polite with you as they walk you through all the crap that they push you through. Because I can tell you, as a tax firm, we deal mostly with the IRS. Second most is with underwriters, because anytime you get a loan, they always ask for your tax return. So we're always involved. And I can just tell you from experience, underwriters, the person you're not talking to, is a complete moron. They have no idea what they're doing. They're following checklists. They're looking at tax returns that they don't even understand. And so a lot of times they request information that they don't even need. And so sometimes we have had some clients get a little, I wouldn't say mad, just annoyed with us, that we're like, that we'll push back on the requests, or we'll ask for a direct introduction to the underwriter. My favorite email that I've ever received was from an underwriter that said, I have never had anybody ever talk to me this way. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I'm just saying what everyone else was already thinking, because they don't have any business asking for the information they're asking for a lot of times. Anyway, so with that being said, bond with the person, not necessarily the institute, but ask those questions like I mentioned. Is this going to stay open? Are there any hidden fees that you're not talking about that are going to be in the final paperwork? I just need to know what my final payment is going to be and for how long.
Yeah. So for all you guys who are looking in the SBA route, the way it kind of works is it's a government institution, and correct me if I'm wrong, and this is my understanding of it. It's a government institution that basically federally insures the loan. And in order to do that, you have to do mountains and mountains of governmentally required paperwork that will require signatures that will expire before all the paperwork gets done. So you get to sign it like 2 or 3 times for those signatures to be valid. And I've gone through this, so you can tell. And what they do is they charge you a fee, and I don't remember what the fee is offhand. It might be like 1% or 2% at the onset of the loan. That's basically like the SBA loan fee, which goes into a pool of money that is used to pay off anyone that fails the loan. So you're kind of paying for your own insurance against the entire pool of the SBA loan process. Did I completely butcher that?
That's right on. And here's a fun fact too. You can only pay off SBA loans on the 3rd Thursday of every month.
Like pay it off completely?
Yeah, like if you're going to pay it off or refinance it, 3rd Thursday of every month is the only time you can do that. And so the other thing, to add what you said, the government gets investors and they also put money in. And so they're guaranteed a certain return on their investment. And so typically those are in 6-month increments. So I ended up paying my SBA loan off like the month after. So in addition to my payoff, I still had to pay 5 months of interest because my loan guaranteed it. And that was in the paperwork. There's nothing I could have done about it. I had to pay off the SBA loan for legal reasons with the previous guy at the company. But yeah, just ask a lot of questions when you're getting an SBA loan. Obviously, if you can qualify for this 3.75 interest rate that the SBA is talking about for the economic injury disaster loan, so if I was looking for this loan, I would Google search that term or contact a lender that I already have a relationship with and ask them. Economic injury disaster loan is what they're called. 3.75 is a phenomenal interest rate.
Yeah.
Most business loans are good at 6%. Between 5 and 6% are considered good. So 3.75 is awesome. And again, if you're just joining us, I would actually start the process right now, even if you're not sure if you would need it. It doesn't hurt, just to be safe, because until you close, you don't pay any money.
Yeah. And at the worst case, you get to be in the club of people who have gone through the process of doing SBA paperwork, and you can complain about it to the next person who asks.
That's right.
because it's a special club to be in. Trust me. All right, let's dive into the other topic you want to talk about, and that's business interruption insurance.
Yeah, so these are quick ones, but I just, when I was looking at some stuff, like as far as like disaster relief and things, in fact, on another page with the SBA, they said, in addition to SBA loans, you need to call your insurance provider and ask them about your business interruption coverage. Most general liability policies have this coverage in it, but what the SBA isn't telling you, and maybe I just got a bad insurance thing. So I spoke to my insurance guy. He's like, yeah, those are typically exercised if there's property damage and you can't get in, or your physical space burns down. I said, well, what about in the case that a lot of your clients have to cancel because the government shut them down because of a virus? And he said, well, in your specific loan, which is the case with many, virus is a specifically listed exclusion, meaning if you were counting on insurance to help you, it is likely they will not help you.
Right.
Yeah, Mary, that's right. That's messed up.
Yeah, that was the sense I was getting as I was kind of looking into that. I feel like all those insurance policies, they kind of carve out all of the most likely things that can happen, or, like the travel insurance that says like, oh, in the event of like, yeah, acts of God or war or whatever, too bad, even if you
Yeah.
paid for it. So yeah, it looks like Lauren had the same problem there.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, and then the other one I had was the extension deadline. So as of this morning, they have extended the tax deadline from April 15th to July 15th. So what that means, if it were me, I am not, and I owe taxes, I'm going to wait till July 15th to pay that tax. I'm going to try not to use that money that I already set aside. But gosh, if worse comes to worse and things get bad or worse than what they are, and I have to choose between putting food on my table or paying late to the IRS, I'm keeping myself and my family alive.
Yep.
So if you do owe taxes, I would wait till July 15th to pay that. Lauren asked about the $800, which is typically a California franchise tax. I don't know the specific date, but I do believe California extended their deadline as well. You could just check that. The franchise tax board is what the entity is. Yeah, so that'd be my recommendation on that. I wouldn't hold off on filing. Get it done so you know what the actual bill is, but if you can, sorry, Mary, if you can hold on to it, I'd probably hold onto it just for safety.
Yeah. Kind of speaking to that, what John's saying is like, when it comes to paying your taxes, it's always better to pay your taxes on time and to be prudent about all that. But if, like he's saying, if you need that money for something else, it's better than having to go to the bank and get a loan, then you just use that money and then pay the government late in the payment plans they'll give you. To that same oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sometime, as you were saying that, I'm thinking, if I were a gym owner, I didn't have my experience with the IRS, I might be freaked out by that comment and maybe have some pushback. So just so you guys know, generally the way it works, because every year we have many clients who don't actually pay their taxes on time. The IRS, you file, typically a month or two later, you'll get a notice from the IRS saying you owe us, and now there's some additional penalties. And then after that, typically about month 6, they'll send you another notice, and it'll be called like notice of intent to lien or levy. So it's a notice of intent, meaning they haven't filed any levies or notices yet. At that point, let's say you didn't do anything, probably within a month or two, you'd get another letter saying we've levied your bank account. And if you had money in there, you'd notice that it's missing because the IRS took it. We're not recommending you go that far. But generally, by month 4 or 5, if you still haven't been able to pay them back, you can reach out to them and set up an installment agreement. It's very easy. And I'm guessing with all this coronavirus stuff going on, the IRS will be given instructions to like fast track installment agreements and just accept them. And you don't have to provide any sort of your financial information if you're able to pay it off within 3 years or it's a really long amount of time.
Yeah.
So just so you know, you have months until you actually need to really worry about the IRS getting in trouble. And if you're communicating with them the whole time, they want their money. And if you're communicating with them, you're showing you want to pay them what they're owed. Ignoring them is always the problem. So don't ignore them, but you'll be fine. You'll have some interest and penalties that you'll pay, but no one's going to jail. Your business isn't going to get shut down. Again, this is last resort, but if you were choosing between your life and last resort, let's choose your life.
Yeah, exactly. As like John said, as long as you have intention to pay and you're actually reaching out to them and creating these payment installments or agreements, you're going to be paying an interest rate on it. Like they're going to get you for a penalty, but that's going to be no different than you using your 20% of your APR credit card to buy groceries, right? In fact,
and it's not even 20%. The IRS is like 2 point something.
Yeah, it's like
interest they charge.
Cheaper money, right? Cheaper money.
It is cheaper money.
Yeah. In fact, it would be, no, actually it wouldn't. Never mind. Okay, cool. So we have another question here in the Q&A. Where does John find that gym owner clients waste the most money?
Well, I mean, I think to your point earlier in the thing, it's the little $15 to $20 here and there that add up. That's the biggest one because gym owners just aren't paying attention. They're not asking themselves, is this expense productive for my gym? Does it increase value? Does it support my members, or is this not productive? And I can't really actually figure out what the benefit is. That's the biggest thing people need to do. But gosh, I mean, I've seen people blow money on terrible advertising that they don't even track or know if it's working or not. But it's the little things that really get most people.
Yeah, and again, I think that's a factor of it's something you it's something you can control, and it's something that now that you've got a little bit of downtime, you can spend an hour on some afternoon to go through your statement and highlight the things that you're not sure of what they are anymore and clean them up. Could make a big difference. All right, cool. Well, is there anything else you want to dive into really quick before we let these gym owners get back to their daily business?
No, just encouragement to keep fighting through this. Figure out, in my mind, the most important thing right now is for you to figure out how do you keep providing value to your members so they don't cancel or put their membership on hold. Do that, and don't think through, don't worry about like, well, I don't have a full plan or I haven't thought it through. Like, just do it. Like we closed our gym and we offered, the next day we had an at-home workout. Is it like perfect? No. Was the quality of the video great? No. But it's something.
Showing you're trying, right?
Yeah, we're trying, and we're going to, get with our coaches and we're going to brainstorm what's working, what's not working, and we'll slowly improve. And honestly, right now, I've never seen as much support for the gym space as I have right now in social media and whatever. Everybody's posting ideas, sharing their ideas, because at the end of the day, like, we're all trying to benefit humanity by helping them be fitter. And honestly, we have to stop looking at each other as competition and collaborate better. And I think that's what this is doing. I think it's super powerful what the gym owner community is doing. So get on that train, man. There's so much data out there. I can't even keep up with all the new data content that's being created of ideas you can do to keep your members receiving value.
Total silver lining moment. But yeah, like after 9/11 in the United States, this is a coming together moment. And you can choose to see this as something really bad and scary for your business, or as something that could be really bonding for your community. I haven't seen more gym members post that they're not going to quit their gym and that they support their gym, and just this outpouring of love for the gyms that are out there than ever before. And as a gym owner, you should really take a step back and look at that. If you're being forced to close your gym or step away from things for a minute, just keep trying to find value, and you're going to find your members rallying around you because you're providing a sanctuary for them that they cherish, right? And they don't want to see that go away. So yeah. One last thing I want to leave people with, because I think it's pretty important. At Push Press, obviously, we do billing for members of gyms, and one thing that we saw pop up in the beginning of this more frequently than I feel comfortable with is owners asking us to just do a mass pause on all their members, just like click one button and pause every membership on their account. Which I told them basically, if you want to go out of business, that's how you're going to do it. Do you want to comment on that at all? I have some very strong opinions on it, but I'm curious to hear what you think.
I think in order for us to be part of the solution to not just the coronavirus, but the likely recession that's coming behind it, is we need to be willing to still offer our services for the price of our services. If we stop the flow of money, that is what happened. That's what would push a recession into a depression, when people hoard their cash. Let's keep using it. Let's encourage, stay out there, sell, try to add members. Even now with your gym closed, is there a way you can market and get members in your gym? Victoria's like, that's an awful idea. It really is not a great idea. They're not even asking for it. Like, have confidence in the value you can create.
Right.
But gosh, yeah, I mean, you're for sure, that's silly. Don't do that.
Yeah. It's pretty much guaranteed game over if you do that, because you've got to. What I told them is, if you do that, then you're going to have to resell every single person one by one, and if you're going to pause, you're probably going to put a break in providing value. So there's going to be zero people who come back at the end of it if you're not doing anything for them, while they're paused.
Yeah.
So Lauren says, I found all my members except one continue their membership and offer to pay for others who can't afford. See, the humanity in this is amazing, and I think it's something we should be really rallying around. And it's astonishing that in these darkest moments, the greatest things of humanity come out. And I don't know, I'm proud of that as a gym owner in this community myself. All right, guys, we're going to let you go. We ran 17 minutes over, but I think it was 17 minutes well spent with John Briggs. If you guys haven't read his book, go buy it. I'm slowly changing my own personal life via it. Still haven't canceled all my $17 charges, but I'm going to. So until next time, we're still going to be trying to line up more guests on these live webinars. If you haven't joined, we have a Facebook group called the Gym Survival Guide. It's basically helping you get through these moments. Once we're turned the corner on this, we're going to use that as a gym. I'm calling it the Gym Thrival Guide, where we're going to be using it to help you thrive instead of just survive. So even if you join it now in these dark moments, it'll be around to live in the future. And go join that group. Keep an eye out there. We're going to be lining up all kinds of super smart and intellectual guests like John here, who can help you run your gym better. All right. See you guys later, and thank you for joining.